Tulsa Unified School District Trustees. We've just returned from closed session. Thank you for being patient. We're a little bit late going in. So we will reconvene the regular meeting at 8:40 or 7:41 p.m. Brandon Roque, would you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Of course. Everyone, please stand. Face the flag, right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Brandon. I will now read the civility statement. When conducting the district's business, we will strive to communicate clearly and concisely with a respect for the time of others, to listen objectively and carefully consider the opinions of others, to understand the counterproductive effects of disruptive, demeaning, and intimidating behaviors, to understand and respect district policies and procedures, to maintain a respect for the rich history of the district and the efforts of those who have served in the past. We'll move on to public comments, recognitions, and reports. I have a series of public comments. It appears to me that several of them are for charter-related things. I have two that, one is a general comment. It appears to be something not even on the agenda, and then I will call on someone else. So, Tracy Costan, I'm going to call you up first if that's convenient, and then we'll be looking for Javier Ramirez. I'm not sure if you have an agenda item or not, but be ready to come on, Javier Ramirez. Tracy, please tell us what you think this evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Tracy.
Okay, thank you. At the last board meeting, it was stated about possibly negotiating money in a charter school case in San Diego. And I'm trying to understand this negotiation, especially now during a time when charter oversight fees are changing and we have decreased enrollment. It is my understanding at the time of the MOUs that were signed by that charter in our district that all parties agreed to the terms. The oversight fee was allowed at the time. And yet now I believe because there are vendors that are owed quite a bit of money, the district attorney is looking for the 6 districts who sponsored that charter to pay up. And my question is, if you're able to answer it at some point, is the district a defendant in that civil lawsuit? Are we named, and who exactly is suing us? And why is the community just now hearing about this 2 weeks ago about a possible payout? Now, I understand about gag orders, but there's some missing pieces here, and I find it very disheartening and frankly unbelievable, Mr. Falsgraf, that for a time being now, for about 1.5 years, you've been inferring some wrongdoing, never really coming out and saying straight up what the wrongdoing was, in essence going against your own civility statement by inferring nefarious decisions by past board members. And I believe your outbursts could have opened up liability because outsiders are now looking at our district. And from what has been presented that I've seen, I don't see that the district has done anything wrong. So by caving and paying out money, it's going to hurt our kids and our amazing teachers right now who are giving 210% during these difficult times. And I think we need some better explanations. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Hi guys, we have Sheldon Sparks speaking for us this evening. So I'm not sure if you could unmute Sheldon, please.
Hi there, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight, I appreciate it. First, I'd like to just give a shout out to the community and to the students. I know this online learning, this Zoom learning is not ideal, and they're doing the best they can. The staff through all three of our schools appreciate their hard work and recognize that the struggles that they're facing, and a lot of our kids are facing some struggles. So I wanted to give a shout out to them that we see your need and we see who you are, and you are not forgotten. Second, I'd like to give a shout out to a couple of our teachers who have really gone above and beyond. First, I'd like to thank Melissa for her leadership. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Lundquist for MTV and trying to keep a semblance of school culture going during this tough time. She's done a fantastic job on communicating what's going on at the high school seamlessly and flawlessly, blending together 20, 30 different stories each day or each week. And so she's doing a fantastic job. And the Taco Tech Tuesday crowd, you're also doing a fantastic job. So appreciate that every Tuesday you're coming together and you're training us and you're giving us new ideas on how to engage our students through this Zoom learning. So our hats are off to you. We could not manage this without the partnership of all involved. And so I just wanted to give them a thank you. Second of all, I'd like to kind of communicate to us, even though we're not on campus as a staff, we are definitely working. We have lots of ideas, lots of creative projects that we are trying to move forward with. At the high school, athletics is decorating the gym and raising some funds. Sports is going. We have coaches who are conditioning. Even though we're not on campus, we're not on campus learning. There are a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. And so, again, this is a community effort. Challenging times, and not one person, not one entity is going to be able to solve this. As a district, we got to come together and be like-minded and understand that the people we serve are our families and our students, and those are our customers. And so the more we continue to develop as a staff, the more we continue to put their needs first, the better PR that we will get in the community. And the last thing I would bring up tonight is our district is facing lots of different challenges. There is no one person that's going to be able to navigate this. The community for years has been sharing their thoughts and feelings about the direction that the district should go and the different things that we can do as a community to retain.
I just want to say I hope everybody has a safe and restful holiday. I know there's a special board meeting perhaps next week, but we're all here looking to rest up and just regain some of our mindset to continue on with educating the members of our community who are so worthy of everything that we have to offer.
Thank you very much. CSEA representative. Okay. Student representative to the board.
Hello all, hope everyone is doing well. Wanted to open with the seniors are having a fundraiser at Perkin Up on December 21st. Class of 2022 is having a bake sale on December 12th. I want to congratulate all the classes for continuing to fundraise even though we're in these difficult times. I wanted to congratulate Metal Arc as they're starting to recognize students this month for awards such as Perfect Attendance, Super Scholar, and Citizen of the Month. I think that's great. I know I enjoyed those types of awards in elementary school, so congratulate on that. Last thing I wanted to mention was I'm so grateful for our teachers and especially the people who are continuing to keep sports alive, as I know that's probably one of the best parts of my week is just to see my friends and play my sport. So thank you all and stay safe.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbanks. Superintendent King, Gold Standard Report.
All right, well, thank you. Good evening, everybody. And I have a few things to go over this evening for the report, starting with a brief update on the COVID situation. We had our weekly briefing this morning with Los Angeles County Office of Education as well as Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. As you know, if you're watching the news and keeping up with things, the numbers are going up considerably, particularly in LA County. And so while things remain the same in terms of criteria, waivers, when students and what students are allowed to be on campus, all of those things remain in place for today, I'll say, because again, things seem to be changing rapidly. The previous criteria that I talked about in terms of when schools are allowed to open, they're adding another criteria, the county, in terms of looking at ICUs and hospital beds and those sorts of things now. So we just have to really, hunker down, do the things we're being asked to do in terms of the safer at home order. And I know it's tough times for everybody, but we'll get through this if everybody works together on that as well. To the person who was talking earlier, I think Coach Sparks talking about certainly that applies here as well. And the next thing I'd like to discuss is facilities. Board, I don't have a lot to update on facilities other than thanking Ernesto Mora for just doing an outstanding job on our facilities and escorting me last week through the Agua Dulce campus. We hadn't been over there in a while, so we took a walk over there and just appreciate all his efforts to make sure all of our campuses are safe and clean. CSBA is the California School Board Association. Ms. Jensen's not here this evening, but I do want to thank her for joining me on December 1st for a Zoom conference for board presidents. And so she attended that day with me, and it was a great conference, and appreciate that she was able to make some time to attend that with me. It was a good conference. Happy holidays. So want to wish everybody happy holidays. As Ms. Trussell said, we do have a special board meeting next week, so I'll probably say it again then. However, tonight is the first night of Hanukkah, and me being a little bit oblivious, not paying attention to the calendar ahead of time, I apologize publicly to my family for missing that this evening, and I appreciate their understanding and allowing me to be here for this important board meeting. But I do extend best wishes to everybody during this holiday season. And I'll close my comments with a video from High Desert School. I want to thank the video production class ahead of time for putting this together. And board would just like to share with you some of the great things our teachers are doing in the classrooms and our students and the fabulous learning they're doing despite the climate we're in. So with that, we'll start the video.
Hi, this is Fiscal. I'm so proud of our staff, our students, and our parents for all their hard work during this week. And I'm very proud to introduce this video and to demonstrate some of the hard work that we've been doing.
Item 7, board member comments. Mr. Fox, please.
Yes, I'll be brief. These meetings can be long, and we had lots of other comments. So please don't misrepresent my brevity for anything else. So first, happy Hanukkah for everybody who celebrates Hanukkah, and I'll wish everybody else happy holidays at the next meeting. I appreciate seeing the video. Thank you to the video class and the students. It was wonderful hearing from not one teacher tonight, but two. So thank you, Ms. Trussell and Mr. Sparks. And always good to hear from Mr. Kemp. And I'm glad that some semblance of student body activities are still going on. Fundraisers are about raising funds, but they all are also student body activities. So it's neat that somehow those are still going on, as well as some semblance of athletics. So I was glad to hear that. I want to recognize that I heard the parents speaking on behalf of both Aadusd Meeting and Empower. And regarding, regarding Ms. Costin's comments regarding some of the charter concerns financially, all of us board members are very, very independent, but I want to assure you that having been privy as a board member to all that's going on, none of it has anything to do with other board members' comments. Every board member should speak for themselves, but at the same time, sometimes it's a little bit awkward to defend yourself. And I would just say, as an independent board member, I've always been very independent, that, for what it's worth, take my word for it, none of it, anything that's going on has anything to do with any board member's comments publicly. And that's all I'll say on that. All right, thank you.
Brandon.
Good evening, everyone. First off, thank you to all the parents, the students, everyone that spoke about the charter schools tonight. That was awesome to see so many people during public comments. I wish we had that much activity and that much participation more often. So I've been wanting to say this for a little while, but I kind of waited until the votes were certified prior to saying this, but tonight is looking like it's more than likely going to be my last full board meeting as a sitting member. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone in our district, our students, teachers, administrators, fellow board members. Truly thank you for your help, your support, guidance, and all the hard work you've done. Serving on a school board is not an easy job in the best of times, let alone during a pandemic. So honestly, it's been an honor to serve our community and to serve the district I grew up in. There were a lot of things I wish I could have done while on the board, but unfortunately COVID made a lot of those very difficult. With that being said, I couldn't ask for a better school district to work with. To all our teachers who put in so much hard work, you're truly amazing. Please keep up the good work. Teaching isn't easy under normal circumstances. During a pandemic, practicing with distance learning and everything else, it's even harder. So thank you for your support of our students. Thank you for your support of our district. You guys are rock stars. To our staff and admins that are keeping our schools going, keeping operations at least as much as possible to normality, thank you. In a world of unknowns, your dedication to our students in our district can't be understated. To our community members, our parents, our teachers, our community members, thank you for attending the meetings. Thank you for writing us emails. I know I can only speak for myself, but getting emails from community members, getting emails from parents, while we may have differing views sometimes, we may not. At the end of the day, knowing how you think made it easier for me to make certain decisions, and it also made some decisions much harder for me. But having that input is something that I value very highly. And finally, to our students, I know it's not an easy time between the uncertainty and the surrounding COVID-19 issues, distance learning, and everything else going on. But our district has some of the best students I've ever had the pleasure of meeting, and I know you'll continue to thrive and grow. And hopefully we'll get out of this one day and everybody will be back in school and this will all be a distant memory. Finally, to Mr. Wadsworth, who once votes are certified will more than likely be the new sitting board member, I truly wish you the best of luck during your term on the board. I have faith you'll be here for the best interest of our students, our teachers, and our district. The job's challenging at times, but it's honestly extremely rewarding to serve the district. If there's anything I can help you with, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. Once again, it's been an honor to serve this district. I hope everyone has a happy and safe holiday, and thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Coach Jorgensen.
Well, happy Hanukkah to all of the people that celebrate. I want to take a moment to really congratulate our students at every level, from kindergarten all the way up through high school, through the 12th grade. I know this has been an extremely challenging time. It's very different. The classrooms don't look the same. You're not around your friends, but your hard work and determination is to be congratulated, and I recognize you for that. I want to thank the parents for their patience. I've gotten emails, like Brendan has said, regarding certain circumstances, things that come up. But I want to thank the parents for the patience and the effort, because I know it's a stressful time for you in the home, having to have kids in the home all during the normal school day, and to you to be congratulated. Can't say enough about the teachers. The teachers are working overtime, double time, triple time to make sure that they meet their students' needs as best they can during these challenging times. And as Coach Sparks said, that it's a we thing, it's not an I. And that's something that I enjoyed on my whole 18 years at Vasquez. The staff worked together for the betterment of the students. I want to thank the staff in the offices and in the district office to being supporting the teachers and the students and responding to parent needs as best they can. These are unusual times. These are very challenging times. And though we know that there's some rough days and weeks ahead of us here during the holiday season, I want to encourage everyone to take the time as you get close to the end of the semester to finish strong. Make sure that you've done all your work, get everything done, and so you have a well-deserved break. I want to wish everyone a safe and well holiday. Make sure that you make the right decisions. We'll look forward to seeing you back here in January. And everybody, please stay safe and be well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Kelly, wherever you are tonight, I hope you're safe and having an enjoyable. And it seems like challenges are piled on. I do want to talk a little bit about something that I find serious. I had an acquaintance that I've known for 30 years. We've been in the tree business together in Vegas, and apparently somebody brought COVID into the office environment there. There were 8 sales reps. They all ended up with it. They all ended up taking it home. Some of them did better than others, and my friend buried his wife after 12 days of illness. And I think the worst part about that is you can't get in the hospital. When you drop them off to get the test, and then 12 days later, you're identifying them. That's very sobering. And so everybody that's doing what they need to do to social distance and keep themselves healthy, and to make sure that others are healthy with these masks and stuff, I so appreciate that. It's very upsetting. Until it touches you and someone you know, especially someone that's healthy and works out and all that type of thing, it's kind of this idea, and then you hear this, well, maybe this isn't real or whatever. It's very real. Another thing, this is a sad one. Somebody at work participates in club sports. And speaking of sports, thank you, Mr. Sparks. I would really, really like to, based on about what I'm about to tell you, like to know more about the sports program. I'd like to see a little update about what's happening with our sports teams, who's practicing, how they're doing that in this difficult environment, because I know that's very difficult to have happen, what the schedules look. I know nothing about sports. Again, I used to be able to go to every game I wanted to, and so I very much appreciate an update of that, especially from the director of athletics. I remember a day when I went out and saw somebody playing tennis in a wheelchair, and I knowing that everyone has equal access to the sports team. So I'd really like to see an update. But anyway, somebody sent their kid off to a soccer camp somewhere in another state. They flew back. No one told anybody. And the brother of one of the attendees ended up being asymptomatic for COVID, and now you have all kinds of people in all different places trying to find out and do tracing across. So, you know, going out of state, I know we appreciate our families and everything, but to everybody that is saying, hey, I'm not going to go, I'm going to stay at home and I'm going to work my way through this, that is the best thing you can do. And the district is planning for the return, and I appreciate our associations coming to agreement with the district and thinking it out, because it's not about compensation, it's more about how you're going to do things and be practical about it and deliver a result rather than just talk about it and figure out what happens when you get there. You found my glasses, I'm about done. Yeah, this court case, I mean, we go back on this to my first candidacy where I was at a community meeting. It was called a candidate forum. We were being told that we were being protected and we were being this and we were being that. And, I mean, Google me if you want to know what I talk about charters. I've been in the LA Times over it and all that kind of thing. But I'm one board member, and you've been able to find me where I stand. And I think it's pretty easy to look up Valiant and Mosaic and see the board meeting I'm talking to and see how some of the board members were. But fast forward, I am a government employee. I know how taxes and fees are funded. I've said 100 times, I do not expect that the taxes I pay or the money that's given to send my child to school is going to be spent in San Bernardino County. And when you do that, sometimes things happen. And that court case, one more time, I've been doing everything I can to let everybody know for years. That court case is number SD 266439. You can get on the internet, you can find it. You can call the San Diego County DA's office. You can look in the San Diego newspaper, it's all over. Anyway, inform yourself. But you cannot walk off with $50 million worth of educational funds and go hide in Australia. The DA comes after you. It's very odd that the DA in this case and the judge in this case handle the civil end of it and the criminal end. So you'll find superintendents who didn't have enough money, and I will tell you, Mr. Fox has set up there every year, write to your people, write to your senators, write to your assemblymen, ask them for adequate funding, especially for small school districts. That's really the issue. But at the end of the day, they want money back, and we cannot discuss what that is right now. We're in no area to negotiate. The judge will tell us what to do. You have one superintendent who bought school buses with the money, the extra money. I don't know that that's a crime. I think kids deserve buses. But at the end of the day, that superintendent is under criminal indictment for felony misappropriation of public funds. I don't know how much more it can get messed up to the point where somebody in San Diego County is making state and federal level decisions about charter schools. We have plenty of fine charter schools. If you want to get in the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about, find the hearing about the Mosaica Valiant Charter hearing, and you'll see what we're talking about. We got plenty of charters out there, and the idea is education, not to make money off of them, but to make sure that kids in this district are offered a choice. And I'll end by saying I appreciate everyone that talked to us tonight about the schools they attend and why they like to attend them. I am not going to comment about anything about that. We'll be waiting for the staff recommendation on these things, but I do very much appreciate hearing from our constituents, and some of them do send their kids to local charters, so thank you. Oh, one more thing. I would be remiss if I didn't do this. Mr. Brandon Roque, it has been a pleasure to serve with you. You're a fine young man. You represent the best of the hundreds and thousands of kids that have attended our school systems. I join you in welcoming and congratulating Chad Wadsworth, who will join us, and I expect that the board will support him. He has ideas that are unique to ours. He has been voted in by public vote, just like all of us. And we're looking forward. And Brandon, I know you will support him in his causes and his good intentions for the district. So thanks for your patience. All right. This is an information item.
I think it's an action, let me see. Let's see, procedural, yes, correct, you're correct.
Go ahead, Larry.
Okay, so this is a report that you're accustomed to receiving, board, and we're required to deliver this report to you within 180 days at the end of the fiscal year. The current report shows a fund ending balance of effective June 30th, 2020 of $372,419.31. This is based on developer fees from both residential communities, development, as well as commercial. And I mean, that's essentially it, unless the board has questions. You've had this in your packet.
Board, do you have any questions?
No questions, just an observation for the record that this is, the balance you stated isn't from fees collected in the last year. It's the total in the year it started with, a balance close to that. It's not like there's that much extra money going in the current year.
Thank you.
Noted. We'll move on. Next item is D, budget overview for parents.
The classified C, classified salary.
Okay. So classified salary section, schedule revision, state minimum wage increases is an action item. Can someone move it in?
Tim Jorgensen move.
Brandon Roque, second.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is regard to minimum wage. As the board may recall, we've increased the minimum wage. We made a commitment to increase it by $1 each year until we get to the state requirement for minimum wage. This action item allows it to increase to $14 per hour, is the least that any employee would make in our district. And what you have attached to it accordingly is the classified salary schedule, which has been adjusted pending your approval.
Any questions, board? Call the question.
Mike Fox, aye.
Brandon Roque, aye.
Tim Jorgensen, aye.
Board 3 ayes, board president aye. Passes 4-0, 1 absence. Budget overview for parents.
Okay, the budget overview for parents, oh, this is an action item too, I apologize.
Do I have a motion? Budget overview for parents.
Move it in, Mike Fox will move it in.
Thank you.
Brandon, second.
Larry?
Okay, so this was typically a component of the learning, local control accountability plan, the LCAP. And because the LCAP was waived due to COVID, the state still is requiring that we do this as a standalone item and bring it to the board. So we're bringing to the board to you a usual component that you've seen in the LCAP previously, and it gives parents an overview, again, as a standalone item, and it's now a requirement by the state. And so in it, you find the projected revenue, identified by fund source. The one thing that's different in here that you'll see is the federal CARES funds that we received made up 5% of that pie chart you see for $870,834. And so that's essentially what you're looking at here.
Board, any questions? call the question.
Mike Fox, aye.
Fran Roque, aye.
Tim Jorgensen, aye.
Board 3 ayes, board president, aye, carried 4-0-1. First interim report. This is an action item. Can I have it moved in, please?
Fran Roque, so moved.
Tim Jorgensen, second.
Larry, before we introduce it, it's my understanding that this PowerPoint that we're about to see was posted for public review on Monday with the business agenda for the public to see.
That's correct.
All right, please take it away.
Okay, so we just had that brought up on the screen, the shared screen, so that everybody can see it. And I want to start out by thanking our previous Deputy Superintendent of Business for preparing the PowerPoint as part of the exit plan of some items that needed to be completed before Ms. David left us. So I want to thank her for getting this ready for me. Okay, if we go on to the next slide, oh, there you go. Okay, so this is our fiscal reporting cycle. Board, you're very familiar with this. You'll see a star by the December 15th date, indicating that this report is due by December 15th to the county. And so that's the reason that we're having it brought to you tonight. And it covers the period from July 1st through October 31st in terms of our fiscal status. The one thing I'd like to mention that's not in this timeline is that the governor's proposal comes out in January, which will help us as we make future decisions with regard to our budget. There's a lot of talk of what might be in the January governor's proposal, so we look forward to hearing that. Okay, next slide. Let's see, should be slide number 3. There we go. Okay, so this is the reason why we submit a first interim report. There's basically 3 certifications you can get depending on your first interim. So we certainly want a positive certification. That's one of the things I spoke about on November 19th. If you have to submit a qualified or negative certification, that means you were not able to meet your financial obligations for the out years, either one or both of the next 2 years. And so the budget that we'll be submitting, pending board approval, is a positive certification criteria budget. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, you see that this familiar slide, again, just identifying some things we're going to talk about tonight, our restricted funds as well as our unrestricted funds. And the multi-year projection that we're going to be discussing later on in the presentation refers to the general fund monies, the unrestricted. But we do identify the restricted in the presentation as well, funds 13 through 40. Next slide, please. Okay, this just identifies where our, what used to be called our base revenue, where that funding comes from. And that funding source is now known as the local control funding formula. The base revenue comes from our student population, and there's supplemental and concentration grants that can be given to districts for additional funding. But to qualify for that additional funding, you have to have, for the higher concentration funding, you have to have at least 55% of your students that meet the criteria of being low-income English language learners and foster youth, one of those categories. And currently our 3-year average is 54.62%. So we are just shy of that. And that's why earlier somebody was mentioning on the board, I don't remember which trustee it was, the importance to advocate for fair and full funding for smaller school districts, particularly those like ours who don't meet the criteria to get those additional resources. So we can go on to the next slide, but that's just an overview of where that revenue comes from. This is an overview of our strategic plan. The strategic plan tells the written story of where we're going and our fiscal accountability and utilization of the resources that we receive. The presentation, the first interim that we're bringing to you tonight, tells the story with numbers. So those two stories should align, the number story as well as the written story. Okay, next slide, please. This is an overview of our LCAP goals. You'll see the slash there, LCP, Learning Continuity Plan. So as I mentioned earlier, the LCAP has been waived due to COVID, and so we have a slash Learning Continuity Plan because you're still accountable for the overarching goals of the district that are part of the LCAP. Next slide, please. This is our enrollment, and I'm just going to point out a couple things on this. The main points that I want to make is that the enrollment, there's a hold harmless in place. So we're being funded on the 980 students, 979.6. And so even though we're in a declining enrollment pattern, the cliff, so to speak, doesn't occur for another year, because for the current school year and the next school year, the funding is frozen based on the previous year's average daily attendance in our P2 report that we receive in April. So that's the main point of this piece. It does show that our STRS employer rate at 16.15%, our PERS at 20.70%, and then you can see what those were in the prior year. So, okay, we can go on ahead to the next slide. Okay, the main piece that I'd like to point out on this particular slide is that there is a surplus you'll see on the adopted budget of $270,998. And then in this report that you're adopting tonight, you'll see that there's a deficit of $524,229. That has to do with the charter revenue. So that was one piece I wanted to point out, and that's why you see the impact on the fund balance in that first line with the total revenues. Okay, go to the next slide, please. Okay, this just details out the numbers from the previous slide. A couple things just to note here on the federal funding, where it says impact on the fund balance, line number 2, $992,076. That comes from COVID money, part of the CARES Act money. So that's some funds we received one time there. And then you see two lines below that under other local, negative indicated by the parentheses, $2,983,920. That's a negative because of loss of charter revenue. Okay, so those are a couple things I just wanted to point out there. Okay, next slide, please. So this one, again, just it identifies the expenditures. The other one identified revenue. This one identifies some specifics on expenditures. A couple things on this slide. If you notice on certificated salaries in the adopted budget, we spent $6.4 million approximately on certificated salaries. And then you see it went down to almost $5.8 million in first interim that we're presenting tonight. Same thing for classified salaries. You see it at $2.6 million and then it goes down as we're presenting tonight at $2.3 million. The reason for that is there were some hires, or rather some vacancies that occurred on the natural after the adopted budget that you approved in June. And so now on the first interim, we're showing those, indicating those here, and it doesn't turn out to be as much as a cost savings in actual, because when everything's calculated, you see that in the totals at the bottom, there's a $375,000 difference. But the total amount of those vacancies add up to approximately $897,000.
Pardon me, Larry. Are you basically saying that we're just not filling those vacancies, and that's why the first interim budget shows less expenses on personnel, because we're not filling vacancies?
Correct, because we've been in a declining enrollment.
Yep.
Yeah, for the past, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've tried to take advantage of doing right sizing on the natural.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and then this is the kind of the main focus of our first interim for this evening. So if we go to the next slide, it's got the general fund multi-year projection. And there is one correction, board, on the title. It says 2020, 2021 to 2023-24, and that should be to 24-25. So if you look at the fifth column there, per the board's direction on November 19th, you asked us to go out a couple of years and really look at that long term. And so the fifth column is appropriately titled 2024-25, but just the main title is not. So that's a typo. Just want to bring that to your attention. So if we think about the slide that I shared, similar to this on November 19th, you remember we talked about expense adjustments, and we played a little bit with the number under the 21-22 school year. So all of those were zeros before, and now you see it says $726,000. When everything was a zero there, and we didn't make any expense adjustments, in year 3, which would be the 22-23 school year, there would be a negative 0.49% reserve. But remember, we have to have a 4% reserve. Many districts only are required to have a 3% reserve, but you must have a 4% reserve when your average daily attendance is under 1,000 students. So even when we were just above 1,000, we still maintained over a 4% reserve, and they recommend, on average, that districts try to have a 16 or 17% reserve. So we've really made an effort to do that. And by putting in this expense adjustment, you'll now see, if you go to the reserve dollars at the very bottom of the table, and then if you see reserve level. So one's just representing it in dollars and one's representing it in percentages. So we start out with a reserve level of 44.8%, and you can read the numbers there, and by year 24-25, it's 7.02%. So somebody could ask, wait a minute, you put in $726,000, and those are ongoing expense adjustments, savings for the district, so why do we have a continuing structural deficit problem? And that has to do with a couple different things. One is that we continue to have a declining enrollment projection. And the other piece is that while there's a freeze, as I mentioned earlier, on the ADA for funding purposes, that freeze expires at the end of the 21-22 school year. So at that point, so that plays a role in it as well. But, all to point out that it's going to be important for us to continue to look at ways to restore district fiscal solvency beyond what we've done here. And part of the reason that we didn't institute further reductions or propose further reductions to you this evening is because nobody has a crystal ball. And for those of us that went through very difficult times in the years 2008 to 2013, I was in human resources during that time, and and so you want to be strategic about these things and make sure you're solvent, but at the same time, not get so far ahead of the governor's proposal, for example, that you may not realize that there could be an influx of money coming in to help us out as we deal with the fiscal issues. So we can come back to this one. If you have any questions now, that's fine too. But if you want to just let me finish up, the last part is pretty quick, and then we can come back to this if you have any questions. Okay, so the last piece has to do with restricted funds. So remember the funds 13 through 40. Those are identified: cafeteria fund, fund 17, reserve not capital funds project, fund 14, deferred maintenance, fund 25, capital facilities fund, and fund 40, reserved for capital outlay. So all of those funds have restrictions on them. They are not part of the general fund and therefore not part of the MYP, and so because of the restrictions put on them. So if you can go to the, go to the next slide, just to show what I was talking about. So I identified these funds as I was speaking just now: 13, 17 cafeteria fund, reserve fund 17. Go to the next slide, please. Fund 14, our deferred maintenance fund, which is, if you think of the deferred maintenance fund as semi-major things that you would need to fix up at your house maybe, but not major capital improvements, that's what our deferred maintenance fund is for. And then if you see fund 25 there, capital facilities fund, and fund 40, reserve for capital outlay, those are more for major capital outlay projects. And then if you can go to the last slide, let's see, the summary slide. Keep going. Right there, yeah, that summary slide right there. And I know you've probably read this slide, and you can certainly read it, but I do want to point out just a couple things in summary. The district is able to meet its financial obligations, which is important, with the proposed budget before you this evening, pending your approval, for a positive certification, projected to continue. And so we put those assumptions into the MYP. Okay, so those are the main points I wanted to bring out on that slide. And our next steps, next slide please, thank you, will include the governor's budget for the 21-22 school year. And board, I'd like to, if any of you would like to join me on that, you're always welcome to, especially in the Zoom environment. It's very easy to get you access to that. Just let myself or Ms. McCullough know if you'd like to take part in that. We're happy to have you join us for that. It's usually about 3 hours, and it's put on by School Services of California. And so in our second interim, based on the governor's proposed budget, we may make some adjustments at the second interim. Okay, and those are the main things on that last slide there. And that concludes the report. I'm happy to take any questions. Unfortunately, Pearl Azuka is not here, but fortunately for her, her daughter is getting married this evening. And so if there's anything that I'm unable to answer in the moment this evening, we'll certainly get back to you, board.
Let's start with Mr. Fox.
Yeah, can we go back to the chart deck, the slide on the multi-year projection, please?
It's number 12, so two more, one more past there. One more.
There we go. So, let's see. So, by the way, Mr. King, thank you for explaining this. I followed everything you were describing. I think for myself, the salient features are that the revenue between 21-22 and 22-23, you can see there's a fairly good clip there, and that's because the governor's hold harmless agreement ends. And and because of that, without additional revenue adjustments, which I'll come back to that, without additional adjustments, you can see then that we open up a large deficit. It grows from $372,000 to 1.8 million, and just continues growing based on enrollment trends. I'll just say that at the last special board budget study on this, I was pretty hard over in that we've got to address the structural deficit. Having said that, I do, I'm always listening to staff, and staff's recommendation not to overreact and show draconian cuts in 22 and 23 on top of the ongoing cuts. I'm okay with that. I just want to state out there though for the community so that they know what's coming, barring the governor sending more dollars per pupil to us. Because that's what it would take, more dollars per pupil. Or barring the kind of the gradual decline in enrollment because the community is not producing kids, we're gonna have this discussion again probably this time next year. That's what I think. I don't think the governor is going to come up with that much money. So I know it's painful. I agree with staff not to overreact now, but and we are reacting appropriately because we stay positive out for not just the 3 years we got to look, but 4 years. But we're going to have this conversation again, I believe, a year from now. And I just feel like people deserve to know that. And expense adjustments are programming and staff, frankly. There is a silver lining a little bit, and I think, correct me if I'm mistaken, Mr. King, when I asked you about this after the last board meeting, the enrollment projections, they don't necessarily assume that some of the, I don't want to call it a bubble, it's the opposite of a bubble. We had like 80 kids leave because of the chaos of COVID. These projections don't assume they come back. So it might not be this bad if the kids trickle back. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. But it doesn't change the fact that the community isn't generating a whole lot of kids. And I mean, I learned that certainly from the survey we did on who's in the community when we were deciding whether or not to do another bond, and we realized there's just not that many kids left in the community. Then I looked at my own street where there's 20 houses and only 2 of them have school-age children in them, because people's kids have grown and people stay in their houses. And the only reason I'm going there is because I don't want us to be beating ourselves up. A community is always going to have a certain amount of children that choose to be homeschooled or choose to go to private school. The fact is I've lived here since 1996, and there hasn't been a whole lot of housing development. That's where bubbles of young kids come from. So I don't want us to beat ourselves up by it. I think that we're going to continue to see some declining enrollment, and I just want to let folks know that we're going to have these discussions again next year. But I think we've done the right thing, as painful as it might be, to set ourselves on the right course. That's all I got, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mike. Brandon?
I don't have anything. Thank you, Larry and Miss David, obviously, she's not here, but for taking into account the extra years going out just to make sure that we actually have a good scope of what's going on. That's all I got.
Thank you. Tim?
Well, I want to compliment staff and Miss David for having us in a relatively minor safe position, that we had a reserve, that we're not going to be making these, like what Mike was referring to, that these really bad cuts all at one time, that we can make some prudent decisions because we're going to be talking about this every year for the next 3 or 4 years. And hopefully, like if maybe the budget, the governor comes up with something, who knows? We can't expect that, but we can always hope for it. We're in a position that going 5 years out, we've just got to keep making these cuts, and it's going to be a difficult thing for us to do. But we have a commitment to the community and the students to provide them with the best, highest quality level of education, and so we need to make the decisions that are appropriate to keep them and let them have that opportunity. I have a question, Larry, on the restricted funds. I just wanted to clarify, just for my own edification. On Fund 40, which is reserved for capital outlay, we're in 2021, we're going to be for expenditures are going to go up. Is there a reason why that's going up, or does that make any difference?
That may be one I have to get back to you on.
I mean, we may be contractually obligated to do something there. I'm not sure. It's restricted money, so it's not coming out of the general fund. Let's see. And then the summary for funds under projects for Vasquez, that last one of 47, that's the settlement that we did. I think I understood that. You're right, a little summary down there that we finally got the last sign off on that, right?
You get the alarm. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
And the last question I have is on the declining enrollment. I think Mike maybe touched on it, and it shows in that projection. The freeze that the government has given us, that we're getting money for a certain ADA, even though our ADA has dropped, when that drops out in 23, 24, and 24, 25, is that to the year prior ADA, it's going to drop to that, or is it that they're going to want that money that they let us have, they want that back?
okay, let me catch up to you, because I was actually still doing your first question.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, I was just
Well, your first one, I think that's related to, as I was looking at it, the concession stand. Remember we had the still
right.
settlement?
Yeah, and that's a settlement that we're done with that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
So now, sorry, now your second one.
Okay. So on the projection, on where Mike had noted that the the revenue just like takes a dive, that's where it goes like, well, the beginning balance goes, drops 2 million and then another 2 million in 23, 24, 24, 25. And on the summary, it says, that we're being paid for that freeze in that. Is this projection for 3 years out or 5 years out, or does it take into account that that's going to drop off?
That's one of the assumptions.
Okay. And the same thing with the STRS and PERS rates continue?
Correct.
That goes out, you've included that, anticipating that there's going to be a COLA, or there's going to be some rate increase every year for the next, every year it goes up. So you've kind of like guesstimated that expense is in there?
Yeah, we put all those in our assumptions.
Okay, good. Well, again, it's Mike hit it on the head. We're going to be talking about this. This is going to be a challenging conversation and discussion that we're going to have, but compliments the staff for keeping us in prior board and prior decisions made by the district before my time to make sure that there was some money on the hand because of this debacle in San Diego that it's just like really putting a challenge to us when we come to addressing charters. That's all I have.
Can we pull up the slide that had the drop in local funding? Yeah, it was more at the beginning. Back.
Go way back, yeah.
Yeah, it's right in there. Right there. General fund revenue. You see here it says other local. So the adopted budget, there was an expectation other local was $7 million. And then the first interim says, okay, well, that's kind of what's there. Now all of a sudden, in a period of 6 months, you go from 7 million to minus 2 million. I want to talk a little bit about that. And when you sit on the school board, not everything is, there's things we want to tell you, and I'm pretty good at dropping crumbs if you're Hansel and Gretel and you follow them and the birds help you, but here's what I want to tell you. When I got on the board, there were people building rooms like this and building this and that, and then some staff left and some board members changed. But I will tell you this idea that this just happened overnight, that's not true. The board members that sit now, including the most senior board member, I don't mean to call you out, Mike, but Mike wanted some projects done at the high school very near and dear to his heart that he'd advocated for a long time, with or without charter revenue. And they were to provide additional sports opportunities like tennis and a place for people to play basketball and stuff like that, things that make our community. But anybody can check this out in the newspaper. It's pretty easy to find. The state auditor looked at 3 school districts, including ours, in 2017 and began barking orders back then. Of course, again, to Mike's point, no one really at the state level said, well, why are those people having to do this just to keep, I don't think a basketball court on the outside is some extravagant thing that somebody shouldn't have, or possibly a tennis court when you have a tennis team and you have para-athletes playing. I don't see where the state separating you by a half percentage point just because the people don't look right where you live. But the point I'm making here is going back into 2017, there were auditors in here rifling through files that this staff has nothing to do with. And I'll tell you what, there are people that have worked in this office and done a fine job for 15 and 20 years, and that's not to relate to you guys at all. You're still doing a fine job. But when the state auditor is in here digging through your files and people are disappearing, and they're being told, they're telling staff, you don't talk about this to anybody, and then your superintendent and your chief financial officer get subpoenaed to a grand jury where they can't even tell the board what they're talking about there. So we've been going through this for 2 years, 3 years. And I'm sorry if I couldn't blab out the things the attorneys don't want you to say, but I will tell you this board has been very, very conservative. That's why there's no big Vlad. Do you remember when he used to talk about Vlad the Impaler's fence out front, why it was never finished, and why we didn't put new pavement out here, and why this and why that? This is why. This board and this administrative team that we have now, and especially Lynn, we're so tight with money that the only reason that we have any reserve right now, and that's what's shown in that first interim column, is because they've been rat-holing money, waiting to see who's going to take what back and what we'll have left. And had they not done that, and had this board not been so conservative, we would be in a terrible, terrible situation right now. And people really don't understand what negative certification means. What that means is The state comes in, they throw everybody out, they throw the superintendent out, they put one person in for a board member, and they are about money and all your agreements and all the things that you've done to make your staff feel whole and solid. All that goes out the window. So people say, well, let it go. I don't like the idea of that. And I'm going to end my comments by saying this is the worst possible time to sit up here on this board. And I'm not going to say I told you so, but I told you so. And it's been coming on for a long time. And little did I know I would be the president when all this hit. I knew it was coming. I think the big winner here in the end is this is the worst time to be on the board. And our most senior board member knows this is coming, puts his projects aside, encourages everyone to be frugal and to save money, and then turns around and runs for board again at the worst possible time. Mike Fox, thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking through this. You have actually been through this before, and you still keep coming back for this district and the kids. And I am proud that I've worked with you. You're the one that hung in through thick and thin through this entire thing, and that's the best compliment I can give you. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Ken, Mr. President, do you mind if I comment a bit? Just, I appreciate the accolades, and you used, you gave me accolades 4 or 5 times in there. So I just want to make sure it's really clear. So first thing is, of course, Mr. Paul's observation is correct. We adopted a budget with $7 million of local revenue, other local revenue, and it looks like at first interim it's 4.2. So just for clarity, of course, it's not going negative. It's just there's less of it, and there'll be less of that extra money going forward in the future. In fact, it'll be equal to expenses, so there won't be extra money going forward in the future. What does that mean? It means in the past, that extra money helped us with things. It helped us keep class sizes small. It helped us have extra electives. It helped us do capital improvements. Those kinds of things, it won't be able to help us do anymore. And that's why we're having the discussion we're having. But certainly the surplus that had been running was helpful during those years, but it won't be going that way going forward, so we're going to have to adjust. I just want people to be clear that in net, it's absolutely been helpful. It's just we don't get that help going forward anymore. That's all. Thank you.
Perfect. Anyone else have anything to add? All right, Larry.
Call the question.
We're done. Call the question.
Mike Fox, aye.
Brandon Roque, aye.
Jim Jorgensen, aye.
Board 3 ayes. Board President, aye. 4-0-1.
Thank you, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, staff, for being as conservative as you have been. That brings us to future agenda items. Board, is there anything you want to see?
No, this is Mike Fox. I think that the conditions that we're under will send plenty of things for us to talk about. Thank you.
Mr. President, would you like to agendize that athletic report?
Yeah, I think that's more of an informational item, just, because I know there's things going on out there that we just can't get to, and I think that would help.
Okay.
Okay?
We'll get that for you.
All right, our calendar shows that we have a special board meeting. Is that on December 19th?
Let's see. Is that the 17th? I don't have a calendar in front of me. 17th.
17th. Okay. At that point, the trustees that have been reelected will take the oath of office and the board will be reorganized. Which means I get to go sit down on the end.
Maybe.
No one has any date problems with all that? Good, okay. We were in closed session. There is nothing to report out of closed session. Do I have a motion for adjournment?